Esta vez voy a hacer un picadillo. Estoy friendo la cebolla, un poquito de cebolla picada, some chopped onion. Just warm it in a pan. You fry it a little bit. You have the meat, the chopped potatoes and carrots. This time I don't have any more potatoes, so I'm adding some carrots. And then once that you have your onions a little bit clear, then you're gonna go ahead and dump the meat. To make sure you separate your meat, you want to make sure you have some salt, some pepper, and Sason Goya, and tomato sauce. Okay, so those are the ingredients that you need. As you can see, you have all the meat is getting brown, so you're pouring some salt, you put in some pepper, and you can also add some onion salt. You can also add some cumin, a little bit, and some garlic salt, just a little bit, a tiny bitty, and you let it brown for a little bit. I'm gonna show you in a minute. I cover the meat for a little bit so it speeds up the process, so you can still see when it's getting browned. And you let it in there like for about 5-6 minutes. While your meat is cooking, you open your tomato sauce so you have it ready when it's time to pour it. When the meat is getting a little bit brown, but not completely brown, you can still see some reddish meat in there. It's okay. What we're gonna do now, we're gonna put in the carrots and the potatoes. Okay, so let me put some carrots in there first, and because these are a little bit tougher, I'll let them be there for a little bit longer than the potatoes. So I'm gonna just let them cook in there for a little bit. I would say I will leave them there for like about a minute or two. Now that a minute has passed, about a minute or two, then you pour in the potatoes, and this is important just to make sure that everything is nice and spread out. You let them cook a little bit longer just so they soak all the flavor. You let them in there for about a minute or two as well, and you let them cook in there. When a minute has passed, then you're gonna go ahead and add some of this Sason Goya. What you're gonna do is gently pour this on top of all your meat and potatoes, and then once that you see that you have a nice color in there, it's about half of the packet, you're gonna mix it up really well, because after this you need to taste the flavor and see if it's stuff you're liking. This helps to get the flavor in before you pour in the tomato sauce. Okay, so now I see that almost everything is already dispersed and mixed together. So I'm gonna taste my meat and see how it tastes. If it has good salt, how it is, if it's good for me. And it seems that it's missing a little bit of salt, so this is the point where I add some salt. Now I add a little bit extra because now that I have the salt in there, I'm gonna add my tomato sauce. And you see that almost most of the water from the meat is gone, and your vegetables are taking a little a different consistency, different softness, and So you gotta make sure that you're mixing this well. You put in about half of half a can of the tomato sauce. You leave a little bit in there, maybe 3/4 of the can, and then you mix it up really well. Okay, let it cook in there again for about a minute or two. Just mix it really well. Before you do that, you cover this. So this is the point where you're going to make sure that everything is covered with all the seasonings. You let it sit for a little bit, you let it cook. This is the point of you decide if you want this to be a little bit juicy or you just want it to be a little bit drier. So because this time I'm going to make it a little bit juicier, I'm going to put a little bit more of tomato sauce, and also I'm going to add some of the seasoning just because I needed to take into consideration the tomato sauce that I added. So I'm gonna mix this very well, and because I want it a little bit more juicy and watery, I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of water. So this is just to your liking. So I bring about 1/4 of cup of water, cold water, and I add it to the top of the meat so it is covered. Notice how it started boiling all the meat. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna leave it in here, but before I do that, I'm gonna taste it. For the flavor, I'm gonna taste that flavor that I have in there. And I'm noticing that it's a little bit watery because I need it to be that watery and juicy. I'm gonna lower down the flame to lower so it cooks really slowly. I feel that I need a little bit more of salt, so what I'm gonna add is a little bit more of that salt that I have in here, making sure it's all salty. Now I'm gonna leave it in there so it can all the vegetables are cooked. I check my meat and see how that's cooking. Now I'm gonna check first. I'm just waiting for my vegetables to be cooked. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use a knife and I'm gonna poke in them. If I see that they're still hard, then I'm gonna let them cook more. Okay, so this process is gonna take a little bit longer because these potatoes are still tough. So I'm gonna just leave them in there, let them cook, let it soak, and it should be ready in about 3 or 4 minutes. Now it's time to make our beans. So for our beans, we're gonna need some chopped onions, and I'm gonna put them in the pot with a little bit of oil, just a tiny bit, and you let them cook. Just let them brown a little bit. You're gonna need some tomato sauce. It can be the leftover tomato sauce that you had from earlier. And then you're gonna need a can of black beans. It can be any kind, but these are the ones that I like better just because they have more juice. Some of the black beans that sell over there, their juice is very clear, so they don't have a good flavor. So I'm gonna just wait for my onions to get a little bit brown and really saute them in there, get them browned. Now they're getting a little bit brown. They'll start already getting a little bit hot and nice and transparent first. You can just let them be there, cook for a little bit, just kind of watching them so they won't burn. Well, you see my picadillo here is still boiling in there, nice and easy. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just kind of see if all my potatoes are ready. Not yet, they need a little bit more. So anyways, so I'm checking my onions. I see that they're a little bit brown. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put my leftover tomato sauce. It doesn't matter if it's not that much, because what's gonna happen is that you don't need much. It's just for a little bit of flavor. Okay, so I just rinse the can so you have a little bit more taste. And you also have some leftover Sason Goya, and you put the rest of the packet in there, and you let it cook in there. This one is the most easiest and tasty beans that I made at home. When I don't have time to cook some beans, I just go ahead and do this really quick can. Once that you see that it's boiling and start frying it, and you can see that it's being reduced, then you can pour your beans. So right now it looks like it's getting a different color. It's getting reduced, so I'm just gonna go ahead and pour my tomato sauce, my beans in here. Just go ahead and put them in there. I also add a little bit of water so you can rinse the can. You can just pour it in there and let it cook for a little bit. You see that all this has this nice tomato juice on it, so you just let it boil and cook, and you will have some nice beans. Just let it boil really nice and get all those flavors in. While you're doing that, you're gonna see your picadillo, and you're gonna see that you still have a very juicy consistency over here. You're gonna check your potatoes. The potatoes are soft now. You're gonna check one or two. That means that all of them are done. And you also wanna check some of those carrots, and they are soft and easy. You want to do one more last taste of that juice. So you wanna make sure that your sauce is tasting good. Very good. And that's your picadillo. Just enjoy with your beans and some rice. The rice, I'm gonna have to make another video, but the rice this time I decided to cook it in my rice aroma pot. So you just pour it in here, put 1 cup of rice, 2 of water, you put a little bit of salt and a tiny bit of oil so it doesn't stick, and you just wait until the pot tell you that it's ready. Okay, bye. There you go. I'm done recording. And
Taste.